Welcome everyone to Chat with Sandy and Karen. I am Karen Jackson and my co-host, Sandy Bansal. And I guess next time I'll let you say your own name, Sandy. And today we have a very special guest, Mr. Eric Curts, and he is going to talk to us about a lot of things. We have a wonderful plan for you today. And we're going to start talking about first his new book, Control Alt Achieve, Rebooting Your Classroom with Google Projects. Did I get that? Okay. So welcome, Eric. And how are you doing?
Well, hey, thank you guys so very much for having me here today. It's such a pleasure to be with you. I'm doing great because the sun is shining. It's been, listen, I live in Northeast Ohio, and I do love the seasons. And, the snow is beautiful, and that's wonderful. But there comes a point where you're like, yeah, we're done with it for now. It can come back next winter. I'm ready for some nice weather, and it is gorgeous outside. The sun is shining, and one of the things I ended up doing over the pandemic was really getting into bird watching. So I've got bird feeders outside my window here in my home office, and it's just great to see so many birds back, and the squirrels, and also I love hiking and biking, and so it's so nice to be able to get back out again and start getting active and doing a lot of hiking, which I've been doing quite a bit of here lately. So I'm doing good. Yeah, awesome. Excellent.
So is it cold?
Is it cold? It's really not bad. No. We're I think we've got a heat wave going on now. We're probably in the 50s right now. I think earlier this week we were in the low 60s for a high. Actually, no, it's actually really very, very pleasant right now.
Now, is there snow on the ground, or does it hang around? Or
it's gone. It's finally all melted. Yeah. Wow. We did have quite a bit still hanging out there for a while, but like I said, this last week we were into the high 50s, low 60s, and it got it all cleaned up. So it's beautiful.
I'm jealous.
Now it's possible we could still. I mean, we have had snowstorms in Ohio in April, so there is no question about it. We absolutely could still have, a blizzard before this is over. It can happen. So I don't want to get too optimistic. This might just be a teaser, but that's okay. I'll take it. I'll take every day I can get. But it certainly can still get bad for the next month, but we'll see.
Nice break.
Yeah.
At least. Yeah. In Texas today, it's 66 Fahrenheit and cloudy. But I'll take 66. I can go out and work in my garden. I've got my onions planted. I've got daffodils blooming. So I'm ready for spring. I'm calling it spring, even though it's not really spring yet, but
almost.
I'm calling it spring.
Yeah.
Wow.
What's like in Sweden?
Well, it snowed 2 days ago. It just came down. It's finally gone today. I think we are happy to be above zero, which is above, I think, 32. Otherwise, it's just been cold. Now it's just like, come on now. I want the summer. I want the sun.
Is that pretty normal? Does it take a little bit longer before things thaw out?
Yeah, but I think with the dark days, because the days are shorter and it's cold, and it's like, now it's just like the pandemic hasn't helped. Now it's like, let's get out there.
No, I know what you mean. It's just too gray. And that's one of the things about Northeast Ohio, and it may be an urban legend, but we have Goodyear had a tire manufacturing plant in Akron, Ohio, and they still do. But the urban legend is that they were trying to figure out where to build their plant, and they wanted to find a place where it was cloudy so that the rubber could be outdoors as needed and not have the sun shining on it and causing damage to it. And so they did some survey of the country and said, yeah, Akron, Ohio is like one of the cloudiest places in the United States. And I don't know if it's because of the Great Lakes and, how, I don't know what all goes into that. And again, it could be urban legend, but it sure feels like it because yes, up here, it's just gray for so long. You just like today I'm looking out and there's blue skies. That's why I'm just so happy because you just don't see that. You just go for so much of the year and it's just monochromatic, just gray. Everything's gray. You just want some color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Weather is so important. I mean, that's something, you have in common with everyone. Everyone has interest in it, I think. That's a good starter.
Yeah. But I do love the seasons. I do love the fact that we have distinct seasons here. I love fall, absolutely my favorite season of the year. I love the trees changing, the leaves falling. It's just gorgeous. But yeah, everything. I love how we have all 4 distinct seasons here in Ohio, which, just winter might just go a little too long, maybe.
Yeah.
But it's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Eric. So you are, in my terms, or in my eyes, I should say, a Google legend. When I was training to become a Googler, and this is going back 5 years ago, I think, and I was learning different types of how to use the tools.
Yeah.
Your website helped.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that.
So tell us more about the blog and how it then transformed now into your book.
Oh, absolutely. So I've been in education for 29 years. I started off as a math teacher. I taught middle school math for 7 years. Loved it, absolutely loved it. But I also loved technology. I mean, we didn't have a lot of technology back then. I mean, this was, again, 29 years ago. But I had a computer in my room, and we used Lotus 123, as a spreadsheet program, and we made it work, and so 7 years into teaching, we got a new job in our district as for a tech coach, a tech integration person. And I was like, boy, I think that sounds like a good match for me. I mean, I love teaching, but I also love technology. And so I made the switch, and I've been doing that ever since. So I was at that district for 7 years as a teacher, and then 14 more years as a technology person. And now the last 8 years I've been doing the same thing, but at a regional service center. So I still serve the same district. I just serve about 35 districts now, providing professional development. So training teachers on how to use technology in creative ways in their class. So love getting to do that. So over the years, I've always liked sharing. We talked about that, but before we started recording here today, that it's just a mindset. You are a sharer or you're not. And I love people that are sharers. I love that idea, and that's not always the case. I remember when I first was teaching, there were some folks who would have a really cool lesson and they didn't want anybody else to see it or have it or do it or copy it. It's like, this is mine. I worked hard on this. And there's that's one philosophy. The other philosophy is, I worked hard on this. I want more people to benefit from it. I want it to reach further, and so you're just more prompted to share it. And so I've always been a sharer, and I just love that so many educators are sharers, because there's nothing that I have shared that is, my original idea that, I came up with myself. No, I was inspired by somebody else. I saw something neat. I said, oh, that's cool. Here's a neat twist I could do on that. Here's a neat take I could do on that. And so I'm more than happy for people to take the things that I've shared and do the same thing with them. Make your own version of it, put your twist on it. That's great. So yeah, over the years, I've just always had some kind of, a website or a blog or a podcast or something to share things out. A few years ago, I said, I've got too many things scattered around. Let's bring them under one umbrella. And that's when I started the Control Alt Achieve blog. Just like, okay, I need a central place. I need to stop buying new domain names. I just need to put everything in one place. And that's what I did. And so that's really just where I push everything through. All my blog posts, can be found at controlaltachieve.com. And again, and the main focus of the site is sharing creative ways to use technology. That's that's kind of the niche I've fallen into that I feel most comfortable with is, hey, we've got a tool. Here's a really cool way this could be used with your students. It's all in the end about student learning and, how can kids be creative? How can they take the tools we've already got, docs and sheets and slides and drawings and things like that, and do creative things with it? But then over the years, I've tried to reach out to more people because not everybody, well, it's like our students don't all learn the same way. And same with us as adults. Some people like to read stuff. Others like to watch a video. Some people like to have a book. Some like to listen to a podcast. We learn in different ways. Mm-hmm. And so I've tried to do that over the years. The blog is the main site, but for each blog post, most blog posts, I try to do a video with it. So I'll do a blog post and I'll do a short 5-minute video that goes with it. And I'll share that on Facebook and on Twitter. And I'll put it, I'm trying to reach people where they're at. And so a few years ago, the discussion started coming up about, well, how about a book? And it seemed a little weird at first, like technology is always changing. Why would you put it, on paper and now it's static? And that just seems against the idea of I can take my blog posts and update them if they get outdated. But as I thought about it and talked to people, I realized, well, no, again, it's everybody learns in a way that they're comfortable with. And there are some people that want to hold a book in their hand. They want to have something physical. And I appreciate that. I mean, I'm not so much that. My daughter is. She has more books, than anybody I know in the world, and she just loves holding things physically in her hand. I'm much more of a digital type person, but that's fine. I said, okay, let's meet people where they're at, and so that was the idea. And so the book, Control Alt Achieve, is several dozen of my favorite student projects that came out of the blog. So I just stuck for this one with docs, slides, sheets, and drawings. So I just did those full 4 tools and said, okay, here's a bunch of really fun, creative ways to use the tools we've already got tomorrow with your kids in class. And, everything's here, the directions, step by step, it's colorful, all the pictures are in here, and, all the links you need to be able to get any of the templates or do any of the projects. And so
awesome.
Hopefully that's, reaching out to other folks and giving them that encouragement and the confidence to try some new things with technology, because maybe they wouldn't have come across my blog. And so that's sort of what brought me to finally doing the book. Yeah.
I like that idea. And what has always drawn me toward Google Tools is their versatility. And when I was an instructional technology specialist, teachers would ask me, I want an app to teach algebra, or I want an app to teach editing or something, or some word processing something.
Right.
And we tried to, we adopted G Suite, at that time, G Suite tools, because they were so versatile, so that you could use it in math and you can use it in reading and you can use it for different subject matter, but that the tools were open enough and robust enough that, and teachers, you add that with teacher creativity, and they just run with it. So like, even though your book may have things about docs and sheets, in 5 years, there may be something else, some other name or something.
Absolutely.
But they can still do the task. They can still.
You're exactly right. Yeah. The buttons may change, the menus may change, but the idea of using a multimedia presentation tool to make stop motion animation, or to make an online comic strip, or to use, Google Drawings, or some graphic design tool, to make composite images where a student puts themselves into a scene, or to use, a spreadsheet program to do pixel art, all those, it's going to work. It's going to work with Excel, just like Sheets. It's going to work with PowerPoint, or, whatever the presentation tool is, just like slides. So yeah, I guarantee you there's probably already diagrams in here that aren't right anymore because that's Google. I mean, they went from Google Apps to G Suite to Google Workspace, and they move things around, and that's okay because the concept is still there. It's about exactly taking a tool and doing a creative project with it. So it's not like, okay, I need an app that lets me make stop motion animation. Well, that's great. Sure. That's fantastic. But you can just use Google Slides. It works really well, and you got total control, and it's completely free. Which that's important. I mean, like I said, I serve 35 districts, and they're all over the map as far as their demographics. We've got rural, little teeny rural schools. We've got larger urban schools. We've got schools with high and low population. We've got schools that have budgets to work with, and others that are really struggling with that. And so, if I'm going to take the time to work on a project, a post, a video, I want to know that I'm not going to be leaving people out. I don't want somebody to be like, "Oh, that's so cool. Oh, we can't afford that. Oh, that does sound kind of neat." But I want the stuff that I share to be like anybody can use these things. And so I love the fact that so many companies provide a free version, even if it's just a free version. Like even Google now, we've got Enterprise or Google Education Plus, as it's being called now. But we always have the free version of the Google tools. And the same thing with Read and Write for Google or Moat or Pear Deck, all of these wonderful tools that say, okay, there's a paid version, but there's also a free version, and the free version is viable. It's good. It's something that, and if you decide to go further and you want to purchase it, good for you, and support that company. That's great. But it means so much to me that I can share those sort of free resources and say, no matter what, you and your students can use this. This is something you can use right away.
Yeah, I noticed that you do have a post on your website that talks about the changes that have happened recently. So that's very helpful to for people who are expecting one thing and seeing a little bit different.
Yeah, that was really for my own understanding. I mean, I watched the whole presentation, the Learning with Google presentation that they did, and I was likewise just overwhelmed by the amount of information that was shared. And so I'm like, okay, I have to process this. I have got to figure out everything that they're sharing here and what it all means. And so I went through, the recorded video again, step by step by step, and basically tried to pull it all together from my own understanding, and then posted that as a blog post so that anybody who wants to be able to see, okay, so what all did Google actually share at that, and you can watch the video clips from each portion and get supporting resources on it. And also I'm involved in the Google Educator Group, the GEG for Ohio, and we likewise wanted to talk about all the updates because we do a monthly Google Educator Group of Ohio live stream, and wanted to make sure we were all prepped to be able to talk intelligently about all the stuff that Google had announced. Yeah.
So the changes of Google that have just happened.
Right.
What has been your biggest lifesaver?
Well, I would say right now there's a lot of great things that have been announced with that, but I would say the updates that they're continuing to make to Google Meet are very, very welcomed. Schools have, if they're not using Zoom, they're using Google Meet, and many schools are using Google Meet, and Google has really put a lot of energy and effort into getting it up to speed and adding new features. So I was really happy to see the continued development of additional features. Even just like being able to put students into breakout rooms before the meet starts, something like that. It's things that maybe they wouldn't have thought of at first. But as educators started using the tool and saying, okay, this is great, but we could really use help with some of these other things. So I would say, I was, and of course, that's the majority. If you look at the stuff that they shared, that was a large part of the updates, was the things that are coming out with Google Meet. I am intrigued by some of the other things they mentioned, though, at the very tail end of the Learning with Google event, the very last section. It wasn't announcements. It was more some road ahead type of stuff. And they talked about AI, and they talked about some of their vision for what AI could start looking like, how artificial intelligence could start finding patterns and trends in student, responses on writings or assessments, and that could then get pulled together and bubbled up and shown to the teacher. And I'm excited about that. It wasn't, they weren't announcing anything. They weren't saying, and here's this new AI feature, but they were saying, because that's one of my passions. I love, oh my goodness, I'm so obsessed with what's happening with machine learning, artificial intelligence. It is just fascinating. But the real strength in it, and that's what they were emphasizing, it's not that it's ever meant to replace a teacher. It's meant to help us do our jobs better by doing some of the heavy lifting, by noticing trends, and then saying, okay, here, you now can act upon this. Let the technology do what it does best, so we as humans can do what we do best, which is to then intervene with the students and help them. So I was excited. Again, there was nothing announced in that part of it, just more of their philosophy and what they see in the future. I was like, okay, this is neat. I'm excited to see what they do with AI in education in the future.
Yeah, I think that this year, because it's been a year now with the pandemic, schools have been shut and remote learning. Education has just taken a different way of learning, teaching and learning. Who would have thought that the non-tech teachers who hate technology will be teaching like this?
Absolutely. I'm glad that there is a silver lining in it. This has been a tragedy, what we've had to deal with as a world. We just lost so many lives. This has been just such a terrible thing. But yes, I am glad to say that we also have been able to find some positives. We've been able to be resilient, and one of the things is moving forward with technology and finding out what works and what doesn't work. I also like the fact that I think maybe we've moved away from now the phrase, "Oh, we can't do that," because for years that was always one excuse. It could be, we don't have the money for it or things like that. But a lot of times it's like, no, that's not the way things are done. We can't do that. Even take like working from home, just take something like that. My job, a lot of it, I can do really anywhere. Yes, I meet with people face to face too, but a lot of what I do, creating instructional videos and finding resources and building online courses, I could do that anywhere, and, the whole idea of, well, what about telecommuting and things like that? In the past, the idea has been, well, that's just not the way we do things. We can't do it like that. And suddenly we're like, okay, we have no choice but to do it like that. And suddenly we start realizing, okay, actually, this does work. I'm still happy to. I'm sort of hybrid. I go physically into work certain days, and then I also work remotely certain days. But that idea can be applied to everything. In the past, we might have said, well, we can't do X, Y, Z. And I think if not, I just hope it has shifted. I hope that mindset shift continues on going forward, that we don't think there are things carved in stone in education that, well, this is how we've always done it, so we have to do it that way. If anything, this pandemic has proven that's not true. We can always try a new approach to things.
That's right.
I hope we keep that idea going forward.
I agree. Yeah, we one of our guests, Meetikko Wagstaff, she before she was a teacher, I mean she was an engineer for Ford, and then she became a teacher. But her job now, she works with the university in Georgia, and she sounds like she has a similar job to you, where she's assigned to several campuses, but that's all she does. But she and her husband are living in a RV and going around the country, but she teaches remotely, and she trains teachers, and she mentors. And I think maybe perhaps another good thing is that the relationship emphasis between trainer and teacher is becoming more important, And I kind of want to segue here into, you talked a little bit before the show about digital well-being, and how it's one of your passions, is how to use digital tools, I guess, to increase well-being.
Yeah, that's been something that has been important to me for, a few years. It's been on my mind. I think the pandemic just brought it more to the surface. But the idea being that I love technology, absolutely love technology, but it can be too much of a good thing. It can consume your life. We talk about, on one hand, like, oh, this is so awesome. When you get your first laptop, you're like, I can answer emails anywhere now. This is wonderful. And then you're like, oh, but the negative is I can answer emails anywhere now, anytime, including, sitting in my bed at 11 o'clock at night when I should be going to sleep, answering another email. And that was a pattern I had in my life for many years, and it was detrimental. I could excuse it. I could say, hey, this is for a good reason. I'm recording a training video. I'm making a blog post. I'm answering an email, but the problem is there's no end to that. Even if we're all paid for 8 hours a day, and that's great. Work and work well. Do your job and do it well. Do it to the best of your ability. But then stop. Stop and do other things. And I think we need to hear that now more than ever, because we talk about shifting paradigms. Well, now you can work anytime, and you're working from home, and you can answer questions late at night. Yes, you can, but we've got to also protect our well-being, and we have to have healthy boundaries there, or it will consume you. There's always another email, there's always another video, there's always another blog post, Twitter post. Facebook has no bottom. You can scroll forever, you'll never get to the bottom. Technology can consume us. And so the analogy that I try to that I drew from was back when I was in high school. I helped edit the yearbook, and I learned about design features. And one of the terms I learned was the term full bleed, where you take an image or something and you run it all the way up to the edge of the page. It's a nice design element, but it's not good in your life. Full bleed is not good for your life. We need margin. We need white space. We need things in our life that are not committed, so that we can have these healthy interactions, like, putting your phone in do not disturb mode and actually looking somebody in the eyes and talking to them over a meal, or putting the phone down and going for a walk, getting outside, whatever it is. I mean, it's going to be different for everybody. And I'm not here in any way to say, okay, this is the way. It's different for everybody. We all need to find our own balance, but it's important, I think, that we stop and reflect, that we at least say, Am I feeling like this is a healthy balance? How much time I spend on technology and work, and how much time I spend on hobbies and relationships and so forth. And it's different for everybody, but I think it's our responsibility to take the time and at least consider it and reflect on it. And so that's something I've been working on in my life is, if you look years back, I had way more frequent posts on my blog. I don't post as much. Still do. I still post, but not as much. And I'm not on Twitter as often. And I'm still doing those things, but I'm saying, okay, I also need to take care of my mental health and my emotional health. I need to have healthy balances in my life. I need to spend time with my grandkids. I need to spend time with friends and family. I need to spend time out in nature, which for me, that's important. It's different for everybody, whatever your thing is, but that's something that's really important for me to do that. And at the same time, and I don't want to give the wrong impression. It's not like, oh, technology, it's bad. No, it's not. It's not good or bad. One thing is we need to monitor it and have reasonable limits and boundaries. But the other thing is we need to use technology in a positive sense, and there's so many great ways we can use it. Whether it's, I've got a Google Chrome extension called, Mindful Break, I think is the name of it. And what it does is it pops up every hour and it has a little inspirational quote and it tells me to take a break, and, that's cool. Or one thing that I do, that's not like an extension or anything, it's just more of a practice I do, is we all have to have passwords, right? We all have to have passwords, and you want to have a strong, secure password. So a lot of times we're encouraged to have like a passphrase rather than a password. Do something kind of, long. And so what I started doing several years ago was combining that with positive self-talk. So we talk a lot about how important it is to say things positive to ourselves and not, say negative things. And so what I do is when at my job, I have to pick a new password every 90 days, I think. I'll pick a passphrase that is something positive that I'm trying to remind myself of, something I'm working on in my life. And so for the next 3 months, every time I unlock my laptop, every time I log in, I am sending myself a message and I have to type in this positive, phrase. And, who knows what it is I'm working on. Maybe I'm working on, patience, or I'm working on pausing and appreciating what's, in my life, or whatever it is, but I'll make some sort of a passphrase out of that. And now I type that in every single day. So we can leverage technology, the thing that could be negative, we can make it a force of positivity in our lives as well. I think that's an important thing for us to do as well.
I think that sounds really good. I'm not against technology. I'm a technology teacher as well.
Mhm.
But I see the downsides, just like I can see those who don't teach technology, how they are sucked in, especially students. They are constantly in front of one screen or another and just telling them that you need a break. It's not just mentally, physically, your eyes, your neck, your wrists, just little things. You have to have that. And I will always, I don't know. I think being in tech for such a long time, you can see those little bits, those little things that the others cannot see. So totally.
I really appreciate what you said about students, because at least we grew up and have memories of a time when technology wasn't as pervasive. So we might be able to say, I feel like I'm a little bit out of balance. I feel like I probably need to get back to a little closer to what I was before. But our
Mm,
students, they've never grown up at a time where screens were not right at your hand, always available. And again, this is not a negative thing. Technology is not good or bad, but it can become too much, and we can lose that balance, and it can be unhealthy. But they don't have a comparison. They don't have an
mm,
experience where that wasn't the case. So important that we talk about digital well-being with our students, with our children, that we help them to, find that healthy balance and have some self-discipline in their use of technology so that it is a force of good in their life and not negative.
Absolutely. That is so good to remember. And if they haven't experimented, why not have a project where you have a student, your whole class, go without technology for 24 hours or 48 or a weekend without tech or something.
Yeah.
And
And if
they can
somebody's
write
looking for a
about it.
project like that, Google has their Applied Digital Skills website, and one of their units is on digital wellness. And it has the students doing a project where they monitor their tech and non-tech usage over a period of several days. Then they develop a technology pledge on what they're going to do differently, and then they design a way to share that out, like a slideshow or a site or a video. And so I think not everybody's heard of Google's Applied Digital Skills, which still I think is such a shame that they're not aware of it. But if you just Google that, Google's Applied Digital Skills, they have close to 150 pre-made lessons on digital skills, from creating a resume to making a presentation, creating a quiz, to digital well-being and everything in between. It's geared toward middle school and high school students, but also it's fantastic for adult learners. And it's all video-based. They're pre-made videos. They talk you step by step by step through these projects. They're ready to go. And I wish more people were aware, and I still try to share that out with folks in case people have not come across the site in the past.
That's great. We're gonna put that in the description as well.
Yeah.
I love that they use technology to not just teach technology skills, but to teach life skills.
Mhm.
And it's not necessarily for students or adults, but it's for just humans.
Right.
How to write a resume
Yeah.
or
How to
something
balance your
like that.
checkbook, how
Yeah,
to plan a purchase. I mean, all kinds. They cover so many life skills.
yeah,
Yeah, it's great stuff.
it is. It's really good.
Right, so before we go, Eric, there was something I was reading on your another blog,
Yeah.
which was the Geek Dad.
Oh,
The,
yeah.
and I like the snowboarding bit. So you go snowboarding, or was it just the once in your neighborhood?
Yeah. So for context, I do have a second blog. I do have Control Alt Achieve, where I share all my technology stuff. But I do have a second blog, and I didn't know what to call it. So, I just named it Eric the Rad. So, I'll play on Eric the Red. And so it's right on the site. So if you go to Control Alt Achieve and you look in the top menu bar on the far right, there's a link to the Eric the Rad blog. And that's where I write about mental health and emotional health and well-being and life and things like that. And I didn't want to confuse people by having it, on the Control Alt Achieve sites, like, oh, let me go find another cool activity to do with Google, and then, read some, much more serious, type of a post and confuse folks. So I do have that separate blog. And yeah, I do share a lot of things there about things that I'm working through in my life, things I've learned in my life. And that particular one, yeah, that was one that I wrote about the struggle I had when I became a father to three boys. So in my second marriage, I had my daughter that I brought into the marriage, who was a teenager at the time, and my second wife had three sons that she brought into the marriage. And so I went from raising, this wonderful daughter for 16 years, and she's best kid in the world, to oh, this will be easy, and suddenly I have 3 boys, ages like 2, 4, and 6, suddenly in the house, and it's like, oh, this is different. And I was intimidated because I didn't have a lot of strong male role models in my earlier life. Unfortunately, my father had struggled with alcoholism, the entire time I had known him. Then he died when I was pretty young, and so I had a negative example, and then he was gone. So then there was no example, and so I had a lot of insecurity about, can I be a dad to boys? I don't know boy things. I don't know how to hunt. I don't know how to fix a car. I don't know those things. I'm a geek dad, can I do that? And it was all about me realizing that that's okay, that it's really about, just showing up and being there, that 2-year-olds and 4-year-olds and 6-year-olds, they don't know the rules to the games either. And that's okay. Sometimes you can just play. It doesn't even have to have a rule. And guess what? You can learn with them, and you can discover things. And, I learned all about soccer because they ended up playing soccer, and that's okay. You can learn, but it comes down to, again, showing up and being there, and being a willing lifelong learner, and letting go with the fact that you think you have to know everything. Now, that was an example from, my life as trying to be a dad. But it applies to everything in our lives. It applies to a teacher who's suddenly thrust into a situation where they have to use technology and they're not all that comfortable with it. And I get that. We don't always feel up to the task, but it's the idea of having the mindset of, that's okay. I'm going to learn with my students. I'm going to learn from my students, and I'm going to be a lifelong learner. And so just what I did as a dad, we do as educators every day. And it's a wonderful model to show them that we don't have it all figured out, that we're still learning, because that's what we want them to be as lifelong learners as well.
Yeah. So snowboarding is a must or not?
Yeah. I mean, I've done it, but nothing to be terribly impressed by. small hills on a snowboard. But yeah, it's about saying, I'm going to take that risk. The boys are doing it, so guess what? I'm gonna get on that snowboard. I'm gonna go down that hill, even if it's a little one. Same thing with technology. Take that risk. Go down that little hill, and you're gonna have a fun time. You're gonna learn.
Oh, yeah. That's really good.
That's great. It's all about showing up. I think that's a great thing to remember. That's cool.
Well, thank you, Eric, for being with us and
thank you for having me.
Sharing all your knowledge and your ideas with Karen and myself. We are very honored to have you on our show.
Well, I really appreciate. Thank you so much for taking the time to have me. I think it's fantastic that you guys are doing this. Thanks for what you're putting out there for educators, for putting yourselves out there, and for doing this and helping inspire others. It means a lot.
Yes, and we are also thanking all our listeners out there. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at ChatWSK1, and we can be found on Apple, Google, Spotify as well, podcasts. So there's Karen and myself. We'll be bringing the news from each side of the pond.
Thanks again.
Thank
Bye-bye,
you,
everyone.
Bye.